back on the record outside the presence of the jury. Anything to take up before we bring the jury back in?
No, Your Honor.
Nothing additionally.
Okay, we're ready for the jury.
All right.
Welcome back. Everybody can be seated. Did the jury have a nice lunch? Yes. Did the jury follow the admonition during the lunch break? Yes. Good, thank you. We are going to take a recess from the Commonwealth's case in chief, go into the defendant's case in chief for a witness. Defendant's next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Joshua Young calls Aaron Speck.
Aaron Speck.
Over to you. Seated right outside to the left.
Go find her. Ms. Speck, if you'll come up to the witness stand, please. Good afternoon. Before you have a seat, I'm going to place you under oath. If you'll raise your right hand for me. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be truthful? Thank you. Have a seat on the witness stand. I encourage you to be comfortable. Sit up close to the microphone. It's adjustable for your height. Keep your voice up good and loud so we can all hear your testimony.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Erin Lamar Specht.
Do you live in Louisville?
No, I do not.
How did you get here?
I took about a 15-hour bus ride to get here.
You ever been to Louisville before?
No.
Are you familiar with a man named Joshua Gallagher?
Yes, sir, I am.
Are you familiar with a young boy named Joshua Young?
Yes, I am.
And are you familiar with a woman by the name of Jahara Riddle?
Yes.
Could you please, in your own words, explain in great detail how you know them?
2 years ago, I went to Huntsville, Alabama, to spend time with my son and daughter. My son was going to be turning 14. I pulled into a motel Tuesday night, about 10 o'clock.
Okay, do you know what month we're talking about?
Yes, June. That would have been June 14th, about 10 o'clock.
What year, please?
2 years ago, 2011. Got a room and pulled my car around in front of the room, unloaded my things.
Do you remember the name of the motel?
Nights Inn on University.
Okay.
And as soon as I unloaded, I went to get some ice. And as soon as the door closed behind me, there was a knock at the door. And despite everything I know about safety, I looked out, and there was a woman at the door. So I opened the door, and she stated that her name was Jennifer, and that her and her son were in a domestic situation and desperately trying to go home. They needed a ride to the bus station the next morning, that her mother had provided tickets for her. After some hesitation, I agreed to take her to the bus station in the morning. But then, and then we left it at that. And then a few minutes later, she came back downstairs to tell me that she had given me the wrong room number and gave me the correct room number.
And that's referring to whose room are you talking about?
The room that Jennifer, Joshua, and Gowker had. And Jennifer, I knew her throughout the entire time as Jennifer, but after her arrest and I identified her, I was told her name was Jahara.
Can we just call her Jahara from this point on?
Yes.
We want her to be Jahara.
Okay.
Did she appear to be intoxicated, drugged, anything out of the ordinary when you talked to her?
No, she did not.
And she came with somebody else when she knocked on the door?
She came with Joshua.
This person right here?
Yes.
What did Joshua do while she was talking to you?
Joshua was quiet, stood in the shadows, had nothing to say.
And then what happened after that?
I asked her what time she needed to be to the bus station, and she told me around noon. But she told me that the bus station was at a substation about 8 minutes down the road on Highway 72, which bothered me a little bit because I know that there is a bus station in downtown Huntsville, having lived in Huntsville prior.
Okay, let me just stop you right there. Can you explain the situation? You said you were in town to see your son. And
Yes.
Explain that situation. Why were you not staying with them? Why did you have a motel room?
My son was living with his father, my ex-husband, and my daughter was living with her grandparents, my ex-in-laws. And I felt more comfortable in having my own room rather than to stay at either house.
Thank you. Proceed.
The next morning, she was at my door. Well, to backtrack, she came back to my door a few minutes later. Jahara came back and stated she had given the wrong room number, and she wanted to make sure that I knew what room number she was in, and said that she was very appreciative of the fact that I was going to help her. And so she went on back to her room. The next morning, she was at my door at a very early time, saying she was ready. She had some bags, plastic bags like what you would get at a grocery store or Walmart, whatever. Had them in her hand, and I told her I was not ready to leave. I was somewhat tired and wanted to take more time in getting ready for the day. The day before I spent with my daughter, and that particular day I was going to spend the day with my son. So I told her it was going to be a little bit longer. I wasn't ready, and she came back again within an hour and explained to her again, I'm not quite ready. It's taking a little bit longer. She already had her things sitting by my car. I finally get ready, and she's sitting outside the door, and said that she had to run up and get her son from the room. So we packed everything up. She ran up and got Joshua, and I start to pull out. She said, well, I have to turn in my key because this is my last day. So I pull up to the office. She gets out, runs in, gives the key to the manager. When she comes out, she gets into the front passenger seat, and then immediately the back door opened, and Gowker jumped in the car and said, hi. She said that you might be able to give me a ride to the bus station. It's the same bus station she's going to.
Is that the first time you'd seen Gowker when you poked his...
Yes. I was led to believe that they only knew each other incidentally because they were at the same motel and that they needed to go to the same bus station. After some hesitation, I said, okay. And they said, it's only like 8 minutes down the road on Highway 72. As we're driving, Jahara made a statement. She saw something and said, oh, honey, look. And when she said that, I realized that they obviously knew each other. They were not incidental acquaintances.
When she said honey, who was she talking to?
Gowker.
Let me back up. When she got in the car, when she came out of the office and got in the car, did you see any weapons? Was anybody forcing her to get in the car?
No.
What was the situation? Tell me how she got in the car.
Just, she walked in normally, handed the key, walked back, just like anyone else normally would. I did not see Gowker, and he surprised me from, obviously he had been behind the car. But after she'd called him honey, I realized I was in a situation that I didn't want to be in, because they obviously had told me a story. So I stopped at a Shell station in Madison City at the corner of 72 and Waltriana.
And this is in Alabama.
This is Alabama. It's in Madison City, but just sort of the outskirts of Madison City. And I asked them to go inside and get specific directions on where this bus station was. I know that it had been several years since I had lived there, but I had no remembrance of any substation that direction. Gowker and Jahara went into the station. Gowker went to the ATM and pulled some money. Jahara went and picked up some snacks and paid for it. And she stood just a short time at the cashier. They came out and said, it's 8 more minutes at a truck station down the road. I knew of no truck station. And I started to get extremely nervous at that point. And I told them that I was going to take them to the bus station in Huntsville, that they could adjust their tickets, because I was no longer going to go in the opposite direction of where I needed to be that day. And then right away, Jahara said, well, can you go to the dollar store, which is just a short distance? I need to buy some toothpaste. So I said, okay. Drive over there. Well, when they both came out of the Shell station, Gowker got in the front seat and Jahara got in the back seat. We go to the dollar store. Jahara gets out, goes into the dollar store, and makes a purchase. While she is doing that, Gowker steps out and smokes a cigarette. Then they both got back in, and I start the car and start to drive away, and Gowker said, pass it up. And at that time, Jahara passed a pistol from the back seat to Gowker, and he pointed the gun at me, and he said, drive. And he told me to drive up Waltriana. And then he told me that he was a wanted man and that his picture was all over the TV.
Object to hearsay.
Overruled. Go ahead.
Okay. And I explained to him I wasn't from the area. I had no knowledge. I didn't know who he was. I hadn't seen anything on TV. And he even showed me his driver's license, but I was too scared to actually read the driver's license. Come to the corner of Walteriana and Capshaw, and he tells me to make a left, which is actually turning in the direction of where my in-laws lived. But he had me continue down the road, and he's explaining why they're on the run. He
And
told...
object to hearsay.
This is all part of it.
Come up.
Okay, let's move on from the story that you heard, the information you heard from Mr. Gallagher,
Okay.
and pick it up after that. What happened after that?
We came to a T, and he told me to turn right, which I knew was taking me away from the highway, and I explained that to him. So he told me to go to turn around.
I was trying to avoid the, he told me, he said, certainly.
probably 6 hours.
And do you know how far it was from where you started out in Huntsville to where you ended up?
We ended up on the southern side of Birmingham. So it would have been 3 hours drive.
So you spent the rest of the time doing what? Or can you just tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the places that you went when you weren't driving?
We did stop at a rest stop between Decatur and Birmingham. Jahara got out and bought sodas. And then we stopped again in southern Birmingham in an area called Homewood. He had asked me to... Okay.
Don't testify about what Gallagher said, just what you did in this case.
Okay.
Don't specifically say what you did.
Okay. We stopped at a motel and got a room for 2 days. And then he drove.
Okay, let's take this easy. I know this part is hard. We might need to approach on this too.
Okay, come on.
His situation was, he stated that he had joint custody of Joshua with his ex-wife, and that his ex-wife had taken off with Joshua, and it had taken him 11 months to find him. And he felt that Joshua was in a dangerous situation, so he went to take Joshua, and in the process, he said a man tried to stop them, and he shot him, and that was why they were on the run. And that was the only information I knew at that time as to why he was on the run.
And then just to pick it up after there, we'll backtrack and start from there and go forward again. You can talk about McAllister's.
As far as when...
You were taking us through, and we got to the point where you gave that story, and then can we take it from there? I know we got to Homewood, but let's back up and take it. Fill in the blanks.
When he told me that story, I knew that I had to make him believe I was sympathetic to his situation, that he was trying to save his son from a very bad situation, and that he had made a mistake in according to him, injuring someone else in the process, but that it was for the sake of his son. So I kept a running conversation with him to let him know that I was sympathetic to that situation, and that it was unfortunate he hurt someone, but that I was not that I was sympathetic to his situation in order to keep him calm. He was...
Talk about what you observed, his demeanor. You said keep him calm.
Yes.
How did he appear physically to you?
He was
doing all this. How was he acting?
He kept handling the gun, saying he was nervous. He started asking questions. Did I send a text after he pulled the gun on me? Did I hide all of my jewelry because I thought I was going to be robbed? Why did I keep looking in the rearview mirror? And this was making me very nervous because I wasn't sure that I could talk to this man and make him believe that I was on his side, so that I was saying anything and everything I could to keep the situation calm. And on my way down to Birmingham, he kept giving me a hard time because I had an older car that I just had clutch work done, and every once in a while it would shift out of gear. And I saw I couldn't go very fast, and sometimes it would drop out of gear. He was beginning to get agitated because he felt I was doing it on purpose, and that I was trying to attract attention. And so when we stopped at the rest stop, I offered him a Xanax, which was prescribed for me. I offered...
Prescription bottle of Xanax?
Yes, I had...
Your doctor gave you?
Yes.
What was the reason you offered it to him?
To try and calm him down, because I felt he was losing control, and I wanted him calm.
Okay. During this last segment that you talked about, what was Jahara doing?
She was in the back seat.
She talking, say anything, did you do anything?
No.
What about Joshua Young?
Very quiet. The only words up until that time that I heard from Joshua was that when Goker and Jahara were in the Shell station, he told me his grandfather had diabetes and that he was a little sad about that. And that's the most, up until that time, that I heard from him.
Did he play any role in your abduction?
Only that he was shown as being the son as part of the domestic situation. Every time I saw him, his head was down. He was not saying anything, just very, very quiet.
When you said head down, can you show us the jury how he had his head down like that?
Yes.
Proceed, please.
So I gave him the Xanax to hope, in the hopes. Actually, I hoped it would make him sleepy, and I would see an opportunity to get away. It didn't work. So we proceed to Birmingham, and again, it's just a running conversation. He's asking me for advice. He's saying that they wanted to go to the ocean, and what did I think he should do to be able to do that? And I explained to him that what I thought from having watched TV, that he needed to put the gun away. He needed to just try to hitchhike. He needed to not commit any other crimes, or he would be caught. And it was just a constant conversation concerning that whole scenario. I was decided to take more of a mom role and try and advise him as a mother on that he had made a mistake and he needed to stop making the criminal mistakes if he wanted to get away.
What happened after
that? We stopped. He had me go and rent a room for 2 nights. It was a fairly new motel. He had had me pull all the way to the very back of the motel, and then wanted me to go up to the front desk and arrange for the room. And he had Joshua go with me so that it would appear to be less suspicious. And I But then at that point he told everyone to get in the car and he took the keys from me and drove out into the country. And at one point he slowed down. There was a dirt road that kind of went off to the left down into a grove of trees with a little clearing. And he said, "That looks like a good place to die." And it took everything I had to jokingly say, "Well, now I'm nervous," in a very joking way. And they all laughed, but that broke the tension. And he turned around and drove back into town. And he decided that he wanted to eat. And we went to a Hardee's, which was very close to the motel. And tells Jahara and Joshua to go on in, and he holds me outside and just continuously saying, you can't go to the police, you can't go to the police. And I keep trying to reassure him that I'm sympathetic, I'm not going to the police. And then he takes me in there and he has me order some food. And
Were video cameras in the restaurant?
I don't know for sure. It was relatively crowded. I kept trying to think of could I run? Could I, what I could do to get away? And I was concerned that someone else would get injured. So I did not try anything to get away. We sat down and had a meal, and then at the end, he told me to look Joshua in the eyes and promise I would not call the police. And Joshua seemed to get upset by that.
How did he react when the doctor said that to him? Can you remember?
Just like he didn't want any part of that. Just, it's like, please stop. And then Gowker took me outside and was talking again to me about not going to the police, and I kept insisting I was not going to go to the police. And then Jahara and Joshua came out. We all got back in the car and went to the motel, where we all went into a room. And Gowker is again trying to decide what he's going to do with me. And in an effort to convince that I was 100% totally on his side, we started discussing that, again, that he needed to just accept rides, not to use the gun, because he was going to get caught. I was doing the mom thing again and trying to give him advice, and I gave him all the money I had in my pocket. I gave him $100 to convince him I was totally 100% on his side. He gave me a watch that it had a broken crystal on it, but he said, please give this to your son because I took you away from your son today, as a way of making up for taking me away. And I again offered and gave Gowker some more Xanax. Honestly, I wanted him asleep because I was calling the police, and I wanted him to take the medicine and be sleepy, be relaxed, and be easy to capture. But then there at the end, he's going to let me go, and he had Jahara and Joshua give me a hug, and then he took me outside and talked again about not going to the police, and then he pretended to tear up and said that it was his son's life that depended on me not going to the police. And then he gave me a hug and he let me drive away. And at that time, I went across the street, got some gas, and drove as fast as I could back to Huntsville because I didn't want to be in the same town with him. And I made some phone calls on the way home. The first to my son, and again just said, you know, I got held up. I'll be home soon, and I'll tell you how my day went. And then I called my best friend, and then as it happened, my ex-husband called me because he was wanting to know why I hadn't come to pick my son up. And I explained to him what had happened. And he said, get to the house and we'll call the police.
Did you get to the house?
I got to the house.
Did you call the police?
He did, yes.
And was your statement taken by the police?
The call was made to Huntsville City Police, and they felt they didn't have jurisdiction,
Well, let's
even
not talk
though
about
Yeah, just talk about,
the
did you
Huntsville police said.
did you eventually get to the police? Did you make
Madison
your
City
statement?
Police, and I made a
Told them
statement.
everything that had
Yes.
happened? When did you go back to your place of residence after this? Did you stay a few days?
Yes, because it was my son's birthday on the 18th, and I stayed through that.
Did you give the police your contact information?
Yes, I did.
Were you ever contacted to come to court by anybody?
No. I was contacted by the victims liaison for Madison County, and I explained to her I was having some nightmares and PTSD type issues, and she sent me some form.
Yeah, don't talk about what she said.
Okay.
But you talked to a victim's advocate?
Yes, I did.
Did you ever talk to anybody else?
No, I did not.
Did you talk to a police officer after that?
After that, no. The night that I gave my statement, yes.
Did you talk to a prosecutor after that?
No.
Do you know what happened to your case?
No, sir. I can only surmise what might have happened to my case.
During this whole horrible encounter with Galker, was there ever any discussion by anybody in the car, the circumstances surrounding Trace Wicker's death?
None whatsoever.
And you know, when I say Trace Wicker, I'm talking
Yes.
about the boy that was murdered in this case.
Yes.
No information from anybody?
No, sir. The only way I found out about it was later. I was looking online to try and figure out what was going on with my case.
Okay. And at any time during this horrible episode, did it appear to you that Jahara was being drugged?
Absolutely not.
She seemed in her normal frame of mind.
Yes.
Throughout this entire episode, how many words do you think Joshua Young said to you?
Maybe 20.
Was he conversing with Jahara or Galker during this episode?
He was very quiet. Very quiet.
Do you know who these people are at this table here?
Other than they must be the prosecutors.
Did the Louisville Police Department ever contact you about what had happened to you?
No, sir.
Did the prosecutor's office ever contact you and ask you what happened?
No, sir.
You may ask.
Cross-examination.
Ms. Beck, my name is Erin White, and I am the prosecutor. You surmised correctly. And I think that you just stated, and Mr. Schuler made clear, you and I have never spoken before.
No.
And obviously, to your knowledge, we have nothing to do with the case in Alabama, right?
Correct.
I just want to ask you a few questions. I am terribly sorry for what happened to you with Galker, but I want to make sure a few things are clear for the jury as it relates to this case.
Yes.
Did I hear your testimony correctly that the total time that you were with them was about 6 hours?
Approximately. There was the time that we stopped in Madison. There was the stop at the rest stop, and then there was the time getting the room, and then going out into the country, and then eating, and then back to the room. So.
I mean, I understand it's an estimate,
Right.
but would it be fair to say that you all were together less than 12 hours?
Oh, definitely.
Less than 8 hours?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So you were not with them from Sunday to Thursday? It's not a trick question. It sounds like it's supposed to. I just want to be clear. You were only with them for this about 6-hour period. I think you said on Tuesday. Is that correct?
It was the 15th.
Okay. And you said that while you were with them, the people that were there you now know to be Jahara and Gowker and Young.
Yes.
Okay. And that you were under the impression that Gowker and Jahara did not know each other when he first popped into the car.
Initially, yes.
And you assumed that based on the fact that she had been to your door with Young. He had not been involved.
Correct.
He just appeared and asked and expected a ride.
Correct.
Okay. And you said that you all were, it was when you realized, when she said something like, "Oh, honey, look," that you realized they might know each other better than you assumed, and you got a little nervous.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it was around then that you stopped at the Shell and asked the two of them to go in and get directions?
Yes.
And you were concerned because this substation that they were talking about did not sound familiar to you, right?
Correct.
And you have some knowledge of that area because
I used to live there, yes.
And so you said you go into the Shell station and you get better directions because this isn't going well so far.
Yes.
Okay. And you said that Gowker got some cash out of the ATM.
Yes.
And you saw Jahara buy some snacks.
Yes.
Okay. And then when they got back in the car, that's when they give you the directions that it's further out on this sort of country byway. It's not you're not on the expressway anymore.
Correct.
Right? And that's when you said, "Look, I'm taking you to the main bus station. I'm not doing this.
Yes, ma'am.
Getting lost, who knows where with you people, I don't know anymore."
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And before, when you left there, you did stop at the dollar store because Jahara asked you to. Is that correct?
Correct.
And it was at the dollar store where Jahara went in and Gowker, you said, got out and smoked.
Correct.
And when people got back in the car after the dollar store, you did not go in the dollar store, did you?
No, I did not.
Did you stay in the car with Young?
Yes.
He was in the car with you while Gowker was smoking and Jahara was in the dollar store?
Correct.
Okay. And when they come back, they get in the car, and this time Gowker gets in the front seat. Is that correct? Is that the first time that he got in the front seat?
He actually got in the front seat coming out of the Shell station.
Okay, so from Shell to dollar store and then dollar store on,
He was in the front seat. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And it was once he was in the front seat that while you're driving, he says, "Pass it up."
Yes, ma'am.
Had anything happened that you recall right before he said, "Pass it up"?
Only that I said I was taking them to the main bus station in Huntsville because I knew where it was.
Okay. So did you tell them that before the dollar store or after the dollar store?
I believe I told them when they came out of the Shell station and said it's about 8 more miles down at a truck stop. And I really did not remember a truck stop being down there, and it was headed in the direction opposite of where I needed to be that day. And then that's when Jahara very quickly said, "Well, would you go to the dollar store so I can get some toothpaste?"
Okay.
So I agreed to that.
So maybe you didn't even say anything about the main bus stop until post-dollar store.
I believe I said it after they came out of the Shell station.
Out of the Shell. Okay. But it wasn't until after the dollar store that Gowker said, "Pass it up."
Correct.
Okay. And when he said, "Pass it up," were you all driving already?
No, we had all gotten into the car. I believe I started the engine, started to drive when he said, "Okay, pass it up."
Okay. So you were moving when he said, "Pass
Not
it up"?
yet. I hadn't put the car in gear yet.
Okay. The car was on.
Yes.
But you had not moved yet.
Correct.
Okay. And it is your testimony that Jahara passed the gun up.
Yes.
Where was she sitting in the back seat?
She was on the passenger rear.
Okay. And so how did she pass it up?
She passed it up between the seats up to him.
Okay. And you started the car and you're getting ready to pull off, and you saw a hand come up with the gun.
I saw her hand the gun up.
Okay. And did you start driving then, or you're frozen then?
I was frozen at that moment. He said, drive up, and he indicated Wall-Triana.
Direction? Or,
yes.
Okay. And so you drove?
Yes, ma'am.
Because someone you don't know that you really wish you hadn't let in your car is now holding a gun.
Yes, ma'am.
And you are going to do whatever you have to try to stay safe, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. So you all are driving. He has the gun in his lap. Did he aim it at you? Was he holding it in his lap?
He did both.
Both. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And understandably, you're getting terrified, I would assume, at this point?
I was scared to death. Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
And but as you said, you are trying to stay calm.
Yes.
You don't want to freak him out any more than you feel he already is.
Yes, ma'am.
You give him a Xanax.
Not until we stopped at the rest stop.
That was later at the rest stop.
Yes, ma'am.
Decatur, I think? Is that?
No, it was between Decatur and Birmingham.
Okay. So when you stopped at the rest stop, Jahara got some soft drinks, I think you said?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's when you gave him a Xanax?
Yes, ma'am.
Because you were going to do whatever you have to do to try to stay alive.
I wanted him to calm down.
Absolutely. So once you left the rest stop, did you continue on the path?
Yes, ma'am, to Birmingham.
Towards Birmingham, okay. And when you get to the hotel in Birmingham, I think you said it was a newer
Yes.
motel, and it was a roadway, maybe?
I believe
sound
that.
familiar?
I believe so.
Okay, because Mr. Schuler asked you this, but you gave a written statement to the police in
Yes, ma'am.
Addison, Alabama, right? Okay. And you said that you went in to the roadway to book a room,
Yes, ma'am.
and you booked the room in your name,
Yes, ma'am.
because that's what Gowker told you to do.
Yes, ma'am.
And Young went into the hotel with you.
Yes, ma'am.
And didn't you tell the police in Madison that it was to make sure that you didn't try anything?
That was my interpretation of why I felt he had him go with me. But then later I realized it was to make it appear less suspicious, because we had parked behind the motel at the very end, and that I was asking for a room with 2 beds.
Later when? Later after you gave your
After I
statement
gave
to
my
the police?
statement, yes, ma'am.
Okay. But at the time you gave your statement to the police, not long after this happened, you said that he sent his child in there with you to make sure you didn't try anything.
That was my interpretation.
Okay. And you got the room for 2 days. You said that he gave you $100 and you had to negotiate the room?
Yes, because the rooms actually were more than that, and I said, this is all I have. And they said, no problem, we're new, we'll
Maybe we can get,
yeah,
right?
we'll work it out.
Okay. So you secured the room for 2 nights. It's in your name.
Yes, ma'am.
You go back out to your car.
Yes.
Do you get in the driver's seat?
No, ma'am.
Is Gowker already in the driver's seat when you get back out there?
No, he was not in the driver's seat, but he had the keys, and he said, everybody get in the car.
Okay. So that is when he got in the driver's seat?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the first time that he got in the driver's seat?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you got in the passenger side?
Yes,
or in the
ma'am.
back seat?
I was in the passenger side.
Okay. So Jahara and Young were in the back seat.
Correct.
And you start driving, and he turns towards the woods.
Yes, ma'am.
And you said that once he pulled around in there, he made the comment, well, isn't this a nice place to die, or something?
Yes, ma'am. He didn't actually pull into it.
Okay.
He slowed, came to a stop. You could see that it was a dirt road that kind of went down into a grove of trees that had a clearing.
Okay. And that is, when you were around there, that's when he made that comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And understandably, that didn't feel very good to you when he said that.
No, ma'am.
Right? and you said that, I think you said that you, in an effort to try to help maintain whatever calm you could, you tried to laugh it off. You said you laughed and said, well, I'm nervous now.
Yes, ma'am.
Sort of a fake,
Yes.
but maybe he won't know that I'm freaking out,
Yes.
and I can try to keep him calm.
Yes.
Because you, again, are going to do whatever you have to do to try to stay safe.
Correct.
Absolutely. So, and after that you said they all laughed.
Yes.
Okay, so everybody in the car, Gowker and Young and Jahara laughed when you said, well, I'm nervous now.
Yes.
Okay. And then you went on to Hardee's.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you got to Hardee's, you said, I think you said, don't let me put words in your mouth, but initially, I guess Jahara and Young went in and you and Gowker stayed outside talking?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And during this whole time, you are trying to sympathize, or at least make Gowker think that you sympathize
Correct.
with him. It's, you're in a horrible situation, and, you've done what you've got to do, but stop making bad mistakes.
Correct.
Kind of thing. You think you said you was kind of in mom mode with him.
Yes, ma'am.
Cut before it's too late.
Yes.
But I understand why you've done what you've done. Tried to make him feel, I assume, that there was no risk that you were going to call the police.
Correct.
That you were not going to be an impediment to him, and he didn't have to worry about hurting you.
Correct.
Because you believe that was possible.
I certainly hoped that it was possible, but he never let up with, the entire time. I felt that he might just suddenly change his mind because of his behavior earlier.
Because he was erratic.
Yes, ma'am.
And seemed, I think you said, paranoid and
Yes, ma'am.
angry and upset.
Yes, ma'am.
And through this whole thing, you are going to, you say things you don't actually believe.
Correct.
To protect yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
And you do things that you might not want to do, but you want to protect yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
You gave him more Xanax at the end of your all's time together,
Yes.
right? And
I did that specifically because I wanted him to take the Xanax so he would be sleepy, less likely to, that I knew I was calling the police, and I wanted him to be less able to either shoot somebody or get away or whatever.
maybe he'll be passed out, and then
Yes,
once
ma'am.
you call the police, they can get him because he's in a quasi-coma from the handful of Xanax.
Yes, ma'am. It was just 3 or 4,
Okay.
but yes.
And you talked about how, while you all were talking outside of Hardee's and some inside of Hardee's, that you gave him the $100 that you had
That was in the room.
in the room after Hardee's.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm
Because he
sorry.
was still debating on what to do with me.
It's the, what do I do with you? Do I let you go?
Yes, ma'am. And he was talking about, he only had $23 to his name, and I kept saying, you can no longer do criminal activity. Well, I only had $23. Well, here, take what I have, which happened to be $100. I said, now you've got money. You've got a room for 2 days. You have time to find a ride. You don't have to pull the gun on somebody and continue this crime spree. And just trying to explain to him that it's going to be nothing but trouble for him.
Absolutely.
Just trying to be a mom to him.
To him, and ultimately the idea being to protect yourself. So
Yes,
that you can
ma'am.
get out of there alive.
Definitely. My whole purpose was to get out alive and for no one else to get injured or hurt or killed.
Because you didn't know what he might do to anyone else.
That is correct.
You obviously were not with this trio when they started out, and you weren't with them after you left them. So you don't actually know what the dynamics were there, do you?
Only during the period of time I was with them.
Absolutely. And you would agree that people sometimes do whatever they have to do to try to stay alive.
Yes, ma'am.
And that sometimes the things that people do to try to stay alive might look different than what they actually are.
Judge, let me approach you on that.
Yes.
asked was, you would agree that sometimes the things that you do to keep yourself safe might not look like what they actually are.
Yes, ma'am.
You stated that when you all were in Hardee's, Gowker made you look into Young's eyes and promised that you would not call the police.
Yes, ma'am.
Said that it was his life, his son's life that was on the line.
Yes.
And you testified that the impression you got from Young was a sort of a please stop or an I don't want any part of this. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
My memory of your testimony on direct is that when you did look into Young's eyes and promised that you would not call the police, Mr. Schuler asked you what his demeanor or reaction was. And your testimony was that you got a sort of a please stop and I don't want any of this feeling from Young. Is that correct?
Yes.
I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yes.
Okay. Now, did he say those words, or that is what you interpreted from whatever look was on his face?
That was my interpretation, yes.
Okay. And, but when you all were in the hotel negotiating for the room, did Young say anything to you then, like, while we're in here, get me out of here, I don't want to be part of this?
No, ma'am. The only thing he said was was smoking when they asked smoking or non-smoking.
Okay. One moment, please. I don't have any other questions, ma'am.
Redirect.
No redirect.
Questions from the jury? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, if I can have the attorneys up here.
She was sitting behind Gowker in passenger rear.
When Gowker first entered your car, did he sit behind you or behind Jahara in the back seat?
The first time he got in the car, he got in the back seat until we went to the Shell station. Then they changed positions.
Did Joshua Young appear upset after it was apparent that Joshua Gowker was going to let you go?
No, he did not.
While at the first motel, you said Jahara had her things packed. Let me start over. While at the first motel, you said that Jahara had her things packed by your car before you were out of your room. How did Jahara know which car was yours?
They watched me drive up the night before. That's how they picked me to be the one to come ask. They saw me drive up by myself.
Did it seem to you that Gowker and Jahara were in a relationship or intimate?
I'm not certain, only that she was using terms of endearment, such as honey.
Okay. Any other questions? May we release this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, ma'am. You're free to go. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break. Let's say 15 minutes. Remember your admonition. Be ready to come back in at 5 minutes after 3. Ms. Speck, if you'll let the jury go first, if you'll wait. Ms. Speck, if you'll just wait a minute.
Everyone, take 5.